when setting things up in InDesign, this is my normal recommended setup. So we go to the window menu, workspace, and workspaces, as in the other Adobe applications, are basically just a saved layout of all the panels and toolbars, etc. And I always go to Essentials Classic and then go back to Window Workspace and reset Essentials Classic. And so we should have a vertical toolbar on the left, some options depending on the tool you've got selected on the left, some buttons on the right, and your libraries panel on the right. And you can see in the top right hand corner as well, we have Essentials Classic, and we can click on that and we can choose whatever layout we like. And as you can see, the panels change, but Essentials Classic is a good starting point. And if at any time you move things around, close things down, do not forget all the panels are under the window menu in alphabetical order. The color panels are under color, so you've got color gradient swatches. Type and tables give you character stuff and tables information, and so on and so forth. And I'll just go back and reset again. So whenever you change something, you can go back and reset. If you like a layout that you use a lot, so this is my layout and I'm on a big monitor. If you're on a laptop, for example, you may want to move things around, close things down, and use that as a layout. So I'm going to bring out the Pages panel and expand it here. And I'm going to make it a bit taller and leave that there. And I say, this is what I prefer to start off with. Then I'll go to Window and Workspace and New Workspace. And I'll call this Alex 2. And note, it will remember panel locations and menu customization. The menu customization means you can actually change shortcuts and hide menu items and give them colors, but we'll just do OK to that. And under the window menu and workspace, there are my custom workspaces at the top. And I can delete workspace, so I can get rid of it because I can see I've misspelt it. Delete it, window, workspace, and I can delete the other one as well and add as many as I like. So I'll go back to Essentials Classic. I like the toolbar at the top. You see the difference. You might be set to Essentials, for example, and it hides the options toolbar, which means most of the options you can't see. So Windows, Workspace, Essentials Classic, and Window, Workspace, Reset Essentials Classic. But I want the Pages panel up because that's quite a useful panel to have. If you have more than one monitor, by the way, you can move these over to the next monitor. I won't do that because you obviously can't see that, but I have 3 monitors here and I can spread them around and have different things happening. And so I can basically move my panels out and leave my main monitor to be my work. So if you're working for several hours in one place, if you've got a second monitor, all laptops and iMacs and so on and PCs, they can all hook to a second monitor. I would recommend you do that because it makes life much, much easier. So this is the basic layout to start. And if we're creating a document, and we'll go to File and New and Document, the question is going to be what page size? And then the question is going to be, is it for print or digital? If your stuff is mostly digital, I would still do it going to print and go to A4, and on the right go to landscape. I'll still do it as landscape A4 because most devices are a landscape setup, a landscape screen. And I do it as A4 because if you ever do need to print it, in this country, of course, we deal with A4 as standard, then we can print it to an A4 page. You can, if you go to web, for example, you can deal in pixels, or you can go to print and you can choose under units on the right, whichever you want, and you've got pixels there as well. But if you do it for pixels, there are so many different screen sizes and resolutions, and if you're exporting to PDF, you can zoom in or out, fit to window anyway. Then my recommendation is just A4 landscape gives you a good all-round setup. We're metric here, so 297 by 210 mils. Start off with one page. Initially, you don't need facing pages, but I'll leave them on for the moment if you were going to print, because when you print a book or a magazine, the pages face each other. But if you're doing an on-screen presentation, which you really only read one page at a time, you only visually see one page at a time, uncheck facing pages. But I'll come back to that in a later video. I'll leave it on for the moment. Number of columns 1. We haven't done any layout yet. Standard margins, about 1/2 inch, 12.7 mil. You can change these. The margins are entirely up to you, but do be aware, InDesign does not care about margins. The margins are purely a visual reference for you. For digital work, bleed and slug should be all set to 0. However, if you're doing print work, the bleed is 3, and you generally don't need a slug. And if I click on preview, give it a few seconds, and I'll get a preview of the document behind the panel. There you go. The pink and magenta lines are the beginning and the ends of the various margins. The black lines, the edge of the page, and the red line is the bleed. And if I do a slug, and notice as well, let's make that a bit bigger. I'll put a chain on, so I want them all the same. Make it a bit bigger, and you can see the slug is a blue rectangle around. The slug is really for information if you're sending to a printer, but generally speaking, just set it to 0. You don't need it. And if you're doing digital work, you don't need the bleed either, but I'll leave the bleed on just so you know it's there. You cannot see when you print or export anything outside the page, which is the black line. Obviously, you can change all these, but before you start a job, these are the things you need to work out. Is it print? Is it digital? Both. Do you want landscape, portrait? How many pages? We'll start with 1. What is the layout? We'll leave it as 1 column, but again, you might end up with something with 2, 3, 4 columns, etc. Be careful. Too many columns and the text lines will be too narrow to easily read. But this is what I'd recommend as a basic startup, and I'll click on create, and now we have a simple page. And in the pages panel, you can see page 1. This is a facing page. It's on the right hand side of the spine here, and we have 1 master, a parent. Notice it has 2 pages, a left and a right, and notice A is on page 1 in your pages layout because a parent is underneath page 1. A master page or a parent page is basically like a master slide in PowerPoint, something like that. But then this is now our basic setup. Now we're ready to start our job, and then eventually when we create it, we'll export to PDF.